Doesn't matter how many cameras you have. The actual real penetration rate of how many cameras are being watched at any given moment is like 3 to 5%. So the reality of you catching a problem as it unfolds or before it unfolds is slim to none, which is why a lot of these systems are considered to be for post-incident investigative purposes only, right? Something happened, you pull up the video, you try to understand what happened to prevent it from happening again.
Welcome to AI Experience, the podcast that demystifies artificial intelligence. My name is Julian Rodelsberger, and we are going to find out how AI is changing the world. And I'm very happy to welcome Egor Olteanu to the show. He is the founder of volt.ai, a company at the intersection of AI, safety, and video surveillance, built after a unique career that took him from the US Army to Google X. Today, we'll explore how artificial intelligence is changing the way we think about protection, prevention, and real-time incident response. Igor, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
Doing well. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So maybe Igor, to start off, I'd like to hear more about the origins of Volt AI. I understand it traces back to a very specific moment, an active shooter incident at YouTube's headquarters in 2018, just a few miles away from where you were having lunch. Could you tell us what happened and how this moment shaped your mission?
Absolutely. Actually, we were supposed to have lunch. My now co-founder, but back then he was one of my oldest friends. We've known each other for many years. We're gonna have lunch at the same building and at the place where the shooting happened. And unfortunately, there was a lady that walked in with a weapon, with a pistol in her hand, and she opened fire. And she hurt a couple of people. And when that did happen, the question that we asked ourselves, specifically my co-founder and I, is that how come such an amazing company with all the money in the world, the best engineers of the world, the all the resources that they could possibly throw into it, how come we didn't catch it in time? And the reality, at least the realization that we came to, is that there really isn't a system out there that works in real time that is designed to catch problems early on and work in real time in order to send that information to the people that need to either manage that incident or respond to that incident to try and either stop it or get to it so quickly in order to affect the outcome of the event. And we had a couple of ideas. We thought that we could apply artificial intelligence to existing cameras to kind of build an AI risk management brain that will continuously look for anomalies, look for problems, not necessarily active shooter situations, because those are rare, even though they're very high impact, but the day-to-day stuff that happens on any campus, be it a university campus or be it a company campus, to try and either prevent problems before they happen, or if they cannot be prevented, catch them early on and facilitate the transfer of information in real time to the people that actually need to resolve that problem. That was the beginning of it.
All right, thank you so much. So, could you please explain us what does Volt AI do exactly? Like in very simple terms, you use AI. You have a software built with AI. You plug it to cameras, and this camera is able to be smarter. Is it a good way to explain it?
It is. It's a very good way to explain it. What we didn't want to do is we did not want to reinvent the wheel, meaning let's build another smart camera. Because there's a lot of cameras out there, and those cameras are typically very expensive and takes a long time to install. Now, what we wanted to do is apply an AI and artificial intelligence layer to the existing cameras. Meaning, if you go into a facility and that facility has, I don't know, 50 cameras, 100 cameras, and customers have multiple facilities typically, why can't we connect all of those cameras into essentially one brain that now you have full situational awareness of your facility? Now, it goes beyond of what just the cameras are seeing, because before we even start doing something, we recreate the entire customer space in a 3D environment. Meaning every customer gets 3D maps that gives us a precise understanding of their environment. Once we have that, we also have the precise understanding of the location of the cameras placed in there. So now, not only does every single camera understand what it's seeing, but it also knows what all the other cameras are seeing. So just because it sees a person in a stairwell after hours that's not supposed to be there, for example, this system can retrace back where this person came from and can also understand where can this person possibly go, meaning it can continue go up the stairwell, maybe it'll go into a hallway, maybe it can go into this particular room, because all of those cameras are connected to one brain that's overlaid with geolocation. So that full situational awareness not only allows you to identify problem, but it also allows you to track those problems to more effectively respond to where the situation is currently unfolding instead of where it was last seen, which saves many, many minutes. And in a lot of cases, that is the difference between stopping a problem and just dealing with the consequences.
Okay. And that works with any cameras, like even old ones, or do you need to have like, is it like a specific minimum requirement that you need to have in terms of cameras specifications?
Well, it needs to be a digital camera that sits on a network. So we don't work with old cameras, those coaxial connections. But if it's a camera, let's say built in the past 10, 15 years that sits on a network, it's an IP camera, has RTSP streams, we can work with it.
Okay. Okay. I think people would have a lot of questions about, AI and cameras and video surveillance. What do you think people still misunderstand about what AI can actually do?
I am not an AI scientist, and the mastermind behind the actual architecture of this is my co-founder. But here's how I explained it to myself once we started going to this, because I've been in tech for a while, but I'm not an engineer. AI is amazing at pattern recognition, meaning that a human brain can only process this much information at any given moment. AI can do much, much, much more. Meaning that let's take this particular problem, right? There's absolutely no way that you can have all the people necessary to monitor 100 cameras for 24 hours nonstop. Because think about it. In order to do that, you need 100 people, but you don't need 100 people. You need 300 people because, people can only work 8-hour shifts. But you don't need 300 people because people call in sick, people quit, people go on vacations. So now you need 500 people because you need 5 shifts. But what is the reality of one person looking at a camera nonstop for 8 hours and with perfect attention span trying to see a problem? It's non-existent. You will do that for 15 to 20 minutes, and then you're going to start doing something because your brain is going to explode, for lack of a better term. So the reality is that such tasks not only require tons of people that you don't have the budget for, because people are by far one of the most expensive assets, but you also get a quality of a deliverable that is not consistent and is not very good. And that is one of the reasons why, if you look at different studies, doesn't matter how many cameras you have, the actual real penetration rate of how many cameras are being watched at any given moment is like 3 to 5%. So the reality of you catching a problem as it unfolds or before it unfolds is slim to none, which is why a lot of these systems are considered to be for post incident investigative purposes only, right? Something happened, you pull up the video, you try to understand what happened to prevent it from happening again. Same idea is with sending people to the right place and the right time. The idea that you're going to have this guard or whoever you have in a perfect place where an incident unfolds, again, is slim to none, right? With AI, you don't have that problem. If you apply a layer of artificial intelligence designed to specifically catch certain anomalies or certain problems, right? You don't have to worry about having 500 perfect people that will look at your cameras, right? Whatever a moment happens, artificial intelligence will catch it, right? So, of course, you need to start solving things like how much coverage do you have? Because if you don't have cameras, AI can see it. You need to start solving problems like false positive rates, because if you turn up the sensitivity of your models, it'll catch all the problems, but also a bunch of noise. If you turn it down, it'll catch only some of the problems. None of those are ideal. So there's different layers of validation that you can do to try and prevent false positives from happening.
So a camera is not meant to keep me safe. It's just useful for post-incident investigation. That's it.
In the current state, yes. And I believe that is one of the reasons why these smart systems using artificial intelligence are becoming so popular now.
And so that's interesting because for AI, a person is just an object. It's just like pixels on a screen. So how does your system distinguish between, for example, on a campus, between a student and a real threat? Can machines read context as well as humans?
Well, this is an interesting question, but students can be threats. So one moment the student could be walking through a hallway to a class next, and then something pisses the student off, and he assaults another student, right? The student goes from a person to being a threat. So of course the system reads objects, meaning that for them a human is also an object. Then there's other layers to differentiate that this is a human, this is a non-human object. But it's not really what it sees, it's more of the actions that are being happening. I'll give you an example. If there's an area, let's take a school, where nobody's supposed to be from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., right? Any object, including a human, that all of a sudden appears, right? This system will identify it. Now, let's say that the filter is only tell me people in this space between certain time, right? If that's the case that happens, you don't need any context. You don't need any action. You just need to understand that there's an object of interest that appeared in this particular space between these particular times, right? That sends an alert. But let's say that we also care about medical emergencies and fights, right? And let's say there's a lot of objects walking around in a time and space when they are allowed, but then one of the objects falls down and does not move, right? This object being a person, right? That is an action that is taken that breaks the rules set for that particular space, right? It's a potential medical emergency, it gets escalated. Or let's say that two objects now are fighting. And again, I won't even pretend to tell you how my co-founder and my team built that because I'm not smart enough. But we do have that capability. So when the system understands that this is a fight, not a dance, not a, playing around in the yard or whatever the case may be, right? But an actual fight, then that gets escalated to the end user. So it's both the presence of an object of interest, but also the actions taken by one or more objects. If that makes sense.
Do you have real life examples, real life stories that you can share here with me today?
Absolutely. Um, let's take a couple that I like. So first one, though it happened a while ago, but and this is really one of the first times that it really hit for some of our customers. The reality of this is that we have customers that don't have any operations overnight, but they do have cleaning staff that goes in and cleans the offices, obviously. There was a lady that slipped and hit her head on something very sharp, so she was on the ground bleeding. And even though there was cameras around her, the guards had no idea because there was only one guard sitting in some remote area looking at a bunch of cameras, so it was missed. But our system picked this up as an incident. It picked this up as a medical emergency. It notified medical emergency services as well as the customer on site, meaning the security teams. And that lady was able to get the help that she needed virtually immediately, right, within a few minutes. You can imagine that I don't even want to think of the negative possibilities that could have happened if that lady did not get help because she was bleeding, right? But this went from a potentially very, very bad situation to something that's still unpleasant but manageable. Then we had one of the first incidents that we had at a school. It was a high school, and it wasn't life threatening, but it was very eye opening. Where a girl had a seizure, and she was in the hallway during class where nobody else was in the hallways, and she had a seizure and she fell down. And the system picked that up as a medical emergency. It notified the principal, notified a couple of people, and they were able to get to her very quickly and comfort that kid, right? Think what it says to the parents and think what it says to the kid that if something happens, even if it's very unpleasant, but help will be there. They will help, but they'll take care of your kid. And the kid knows that they're not alone. God forbid something like that happens because, she knows that she lives with this condition. Another one that will give you that was very eye-opening for us is that we saw a bullying incident where a bunch of kids are essentially we're bullying another kid and we're doing different things, and I'm not going to get into details of that, but the system caught that as bullying. It notified the principal and the teachers, they were able to intercept that, stop that from happening. But also think of that footage, right, that can be used now in order to kind of put those kids that were bullying and say, hey, listen, you might think that this is just horseplay, but take a look. Like, do you want to be that kid? Do you want your brother to, to be in that situation? And footage like that could really be used uh, for educational purposes in order to try to kind of explain that, hey guys, this probably shouldn't happen. You shouldn't act this way because it's not right. But it also tells the parents and also tells the kid that, sometimes if you're helpless, we do have a system over here that is designed to help and is designed to stop things like this from happening.
And so, who are your clients? Like, we are talking a lot about education, schools, higher education campuses. Is there some specific industries that are really interested in this kind of surveillance by AI?
Yes. So the more we go forward, the more education becomes a higher priority. Right now, it's more than 50% of everything that we do. And when I say education, it's both K through 12 as well as higher ed, like universities. And one of the reasons for that is previously we're focused on enterprise mostly. But most enterprise customers, when they like your system and they want to buy your system, they're only buying this as a stepping stone. They really need a bunch of custom work to be done in order for it to make sense for their entire organization. And that, of course, for a startup like ours, that's very resource consuming. And as we started digging into the education space, what we found is that even at this stage, our product is so different and so differentiated from everything out there that it's already more than they could ever think that they could have. And even if they don't have the budget, even they don't have the approval to buy it, within the first half a minute or so, it clicks everything, the value and differentiation, and they want to talk to us. They want to figure out how to deploy the system because they realize that it's something that they really need for their operations. So that got us on a path that we started prioritizing education more and more and more. And so far, it's working very well.
What do you want to say to the guards that are currently working for surveillance and video surveillance? Is it a good time for them to find a new job? Or, like, what's your message to them?
Absolutely not. I think guards are not going away anytime soon because if you need to help somebody to get into the building that need access like wheelchairs, if you need to issue badges, everything customer service related is still going to be there. Like it just that human interaction is not going away. What I can say is that every single guard out there right now is overwhelmed. And I know that for a fact. There's way too many things that are happening and they're just running out of time, right? Because there's not enough budget to get more guards. Well, think about having this magic force multiplier tool that all of a sudden now you're not overwhelmed. Now you can actually focus on the customer service tasks to make your job, to actually do what you enjoy about being a guard, right? And not worry about all the mundane alarm, weird stuff that is happening that is very time consuming, that has no positive impact on the organization because AI can take that over. So it's great for guards and it's great for management because the effectiveness of your team goes up for the management, and for the guards the effectiveness of your day-to-day operations and day-to-day job goes up because now you're focused on all the important stuff while all the non-important stuff is being taken care of by a tool that is out there designed to help you do better at your daily tasks.
So your solution Vault doesn't store any personal identifiable information, but it still sees everything. So my question for you is, where do you draw the line between, safety and surveillance? Because I'm sure people have a lot of questions about it.
Well, think about it, right? The camera is already there. So what is the difference between AI seeing everything and a human seeing everything? There is no privacy. And like at this point, after the invention of iPhones and cameras, privacy does not exist. I actually would argue that it's a lot more private when AI sees that because we don't store any of that. We understand what's a human, what's an object. We don't know what this human is. We don't know what their name is. We don't know anything about their lives, right? So within that regard, I would say think of it as not in terms of privacy, but think of it as a safety net that you did not have that previously existed.
And how do you deal with false alarm? Do you have a false positive sometimes, or situation that requires an intervention that was not necessary?
Absolutely. So false positives will happen. That's just the reality of it. What we have and the way that we've designed the system is that we have multiple layers of validation that happen within 30 seconds or less to keep the system as close to real time as possible. The first layer of validation is an AI layer, meaning that once our system detects something as a potential anomaly or a problem, then it goes through another filter that has a higher level of confidence that it needs to pass in order for it to qualify it as a true positive versus a false positive. If it qualifies that, fantastic, it gets escalated. Those two layers are enough in order for us to know that to a 99.99%, this is not a false positive, so we're not sending noise. But let's say there's more difficult situations, which happen all the time, where it does not pass the second layer. This is where we actually have a human in the loop system, where we have people. Their job is not to watch the cameras. Their job is to validate incidents. So when this particular event that is caught by the first layer does not pass the second layer, gets escalated to our human validators that get it popped on their screen, and their job is to do only two things. Yes, it's real. No, it's not real, based on the context that they're seeing. If it's not real, the customer never sees that noise. It goes back into the training queue to improve the accuracy of our models. But if it is real, it gets escalated to the customer, right? The idea behind it is not difficult, and it's nothing new. What was difficult, and again, thanks to our team, is to build this three layers of validation, including the humans, to be done in 30 seconds or less to keep the system essentially real time.
Okay. What are the main challenges the safety industry is facing right now? Would you say it's about hiring guards or change management, maybe?
Money. That is the biggest problem that they're facing, because generally speaking, security teams don't make money. They cost companies money, right? So it's a constant battle to get the resources that you really need for most companies. And previously companies like the big tech companies would not have that problem because they'll have a lot of cash. But the more campuses they open, the more people that they hire, it becomes a problem as well, because humans are just expensive. So in order to do that, you're left with two choices, right? Well, how do I grow my operation and still make sure that I address all the possible risks to a level that is acceptable to the management of the company? If you don't have the budgets, or your budgets are flat year over year, or they even try to dip a little bit lower year over year, that's a serious challenge. So this is where systems like ours come into play, where we say, hey, listen, you don't need more. You can actually, for a fraction of the cost, you can get this force multiplier tool. One of the reasons I like to call it the force multiplier, maybe it's my time in the military, that it allows you to grow your operation, to give the layer of risk management that you need to address all the risks that you want without having to convince your finance team to give you all the money that you're not going to get anyway.
So I think you talked to guards when you implement those systems. What do they tell you at first? And then what do they tell you after a few weeks or a few months of
At
operations?
first, they tell me, "Great, another tool that I have to use. I have already 25 tools that I don't use because they're too complicated. They confuse the hell out of us, right?" Um, then once they start using it, it's like a person going from BlackBerry to an iPhone. It's like, why do I need this iPhone? I love my BlackBerry. I can type very quickly. It's amazing. I used to be that guy, just so you know. And then you get an iPhone, it's like, oh my God, like I'm never going back. This is the greatest thing in the world, right? And this is what happens within the first few weeks, because once they start seeing that problems are being brought to them, they don't have to actually actively look for them. Once those problems are brought with one click of a button, the risk management process, the incident management process starts, and they just have to monitor, and they just have to either take the notes that they need to take, or get on the radio and speak what they need to speak, because the system does everything automatically across all the cameras. It catalogs all the data. It sends all this video and geolocation data to everybody that needs to receive it in parallel, including in some cases 911 call centers. And they're like, I can't believe I've never had this tool before, right? Like now, I used to be like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to look at multiple screens and talk to these people and take these notes and trying to figure this out because everybody wants information, but nobody's getting it. And now, when something happens, Volt takes care of that, and I'm just here to monitor the process and to do exactly what I need to do in order to optimize the positive resolution of this event.
Okay. So I explained as an introduction that you went from military missions in the Middle East to actually now protecting schools and companies. What lessons from the battlefield still shape how you think about AI and safety today? How does your experience translate into what you do today?
Well, battlefield is a very big word. My time in the military was fairly short, and there's thousands of combat veterans that have a lot more experience than I do. But I did some things, and some of those things were related to combat operations in the Middle East. I guess the best way that I can put it is don't give up and just solve problems because it doesn't really matter how well trained you are, how great your NCOs are and your officers are, how great your intel is, the amazing equipment that you have, the ease of terrain, and all that other things that go into play. You will always run into problems that are not anticipated. It's going to happen. And when that happens, you have two choices. You can either get lost and possibly, end up in a very bad situation, or you can figure stuff out, not giving up, and you just begin solving problem after problem. And if you can do that, the chances of success, go up drastically. I think one of the coolest things that I've heard when I was in the military was have a plan, then have a backup plan for your plan because you're ignorant and your first plan sucks, right? That has stuck with me probably since my 19, 20 years old, whatever old I was when I heard that. And I think after I left the military, I brought that concept to my studies when I went to school, got my bachelor's and my master's. Then I brought this to Google, and then I try to bring this every day to Volt because every morning I wake up, I know some things are going to go wrong. It's just going to happen, right? So it can either paralyze me, and I won't even show up in front of my laptop and go do something else, or I can just accept it, and I know problems are going to arise, and I'm just going to have to go through them and solve them. And yeah, it might be difficult. I may not know any solutions for them, but as long as I keep doing that, progress will happen on a daily basis that will eventually lead to something desirable.
Okay. What problems can you solve today with Volt that you were not able to solve like a couple of years ago when you launched it? And if you think ahead, what problems you can't solve today, but you think you will be able to solve them in a couple of
That's
years?
probably one of the coolest questions that I've heard from doing any other podcast. um, what we couldn't do a couple of years ago that we can do now. So now we can actually identify anomalies that the customer does not set a filter for. Meaning previously, the customer would have to set specific rules of detection for all of their areas, right? And then if those rules were broken, then they would get an alert. Now, because of the way the system is designed, even if the customer sets no rules, the system constantly monitors the flow of people and objects through time and space. And if it notices something weird, let's say 10 people get up and start running in one direction during business hours in an office, that's an anomaly, it shouldn't happen. Let's say that, for the past 3 months, this warehouse on Saturday, there was absolutely no movement, and now there's a lot of movement that are happening. That's an anomaly. And what's really cool about it is that if you talk to regional security managers that have let's say they sit in New York, but they're responsible for the entire East Coast, the further it gets away from their office, the more theoretical their understanding of real-time risk profiles of those facilities become, meaning that they kind of know what's happening, but they really don't know because operations change and they're so dynamic on a daily basis that they really conceptually they understand what to look out for, but in reality there's a lot of things that happen that go undetected because they simply just they're too far away from it. With AI, it doesn't. With our system, it doesn't work that way because on a daily basis we see what is happening, and when something does not fit that pattern, we send it to the customer, and they can tell us, yes, that's a problem. No, that's not a problem. This way, it molds the system becomes more and more customized for that particular operation. Currently, what we're not doing that we're going to try and do in a few years. I'm a very big believer that AI is the first stepping stone into automating physical security, because physical security has been done the same way since the Great Wall of China. Um, but I also think it's the first stepping stone, because just like you will never get enough people looking at your cameras, at all the cameras that you have, you will never get enough guards to patrol your facilities, to be at the right place at the right time all the time, for the same reasons: multiple shifts, attention span, training, cost, whatever. And I think robotics platforms are going to be that next stepping stone. Be it dogs or cars or drones. I don't know what it's going to be. I have no idea, but I think it's going to get commoditized, and it's going to be a tool that anybody can use. And I think that companies that have the most AI integrated into day-to-day operations of different industries will have an easier way to take a robotics platform that is commoditized and integrate that into their system. So not only do you now give a force multiplier to people watching the cameras, but you also give a force multiplier to that last mile delivery of, putting eyes on something, or responding to a situation, or understanding what is happening in the particular sector in a more effective and efficient way.
What do you like about your job? What makes you go out of your bed every morning and yeah, just what motivates you every day?
Well, first thing is the mission, because we started this company to save lives. And yes, it might sound a little bit cheesy, but on a day-to-day basis, if we're not saving lives, we're helping lives. And that is a mission that I'm very passionate about, that I know that even if, through the entire time of this company, we save a couple of people, it's worth it, 100%. That is the biggest motivator. The second motivator is that I'm building what I actually want to build. I very quickly realized, working for Google, that it's an amazing company. I'm extremely grateful for it. It built some very amazing products that I like and sometimes love, but I'm not passionate about, because I still work on other people's problems. I still build other people's dreams. With Volt, I'm building my dream, my team's dream, my co-founder's dream. And that is a very big motivator, because I get to implement, or at least try to implement, and try to build something that's in my head. Good or bad, I have no idea. I don't know if people are going to like it. I don't know if it's going to work, but at least I get to do what I want to do. Right. And last but not least is the customer feedback that we get. And this really started accelerating in the past year, where we would talk to people and they would say, you have an amazing product. And sometimes it's like, you're just being nice. But when they spend the next 30 minutes giving you specific examples why they love your system, you know that you did not ignore your day-to-day life and your social life and your personal health and all the other stuff that comes in by building a company from scratch in the past 5 years. You didn't do it for nothing. You did it specifically for that, because people now look at stuff that you've built and they truly appreciate it, because it's changing the way they do their day-to-day
Okay,
work.
well, thank you. Or maybe one last question for maybe those who want to do a career in safety and security in video surveillance. What is your message to them? Do they need to know AI? What advice would you want to share?
The advice that I want to share is just try it. And I'm in that category as well, where a lot of people in this industry are ex-military or ex-law enforcement, that we have a very rigid way of thinking that all problems could be solved by more money and more people. And the reality is that that's not the case. And the reason that we are hesitant to try some of these tools is because we don't understand them. We've never dealt with them. We think that it's going to be too difficult, or this is only for tech savvy people. It's not the case. A lot of tools these days, and I'm not saying that our tool is like that, yes, but there's other tools out there, that could do the job in different ways, but it could do the job. Um, it's very intuitive. It's very easy to do. And the best companies to do this, they also give free pilots, meaning that you can try this tool for with completely no strings attached for X amount of days or X amount of weeks, and see if you like it, see how it transforms your day-to-day operations. So my message would be that if you're curious, please reach out to us, or even if you just want to If you don't know if our tool is right, reach out to us, and if our tool is not right, we'll give you a recommendation on what tool is correct. But don't be afraid. Try it. You literally have nothing to lose.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much. So at the end of each episode, the guest answers a question posed by the previous guest. After that, you'll have the opportunity to ask a question for the next guest. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
All right, so here's your question, courtesy of Daniel Wilson, who is AI and Data Sovereignty Advisor. We can listen to his question right now.
This is a good one. This is technical, but this is also a matter of perspective, okay? And this is about security through obfuscation, and obfuscation means to hide something or try to, keep it like camouflaged. So, they say security through obfuscation is not security. If that's the case, why is it that there is such a strong argument for closed systems and closed models when an open model could be just as secure, if not more secure, based on the integrity of its architecture?
So if I understood this question correctly, it's asking me, why is there a natural tendency for security professionals to essentially keep their cards close to their chest? Well, that comes from their backgrounds. Like I said before, military and police are terrified of things leaking, right? Because that is the potential of, some things leak during an investigation. That is the possibility of not being able to prosecute that case. Some things leak during a military mission. That is the possibility of that mission failing or you losing a bunch of lives. So people tend to keep everything very hush-hush. There's a reason why clearances exist, and there's a reason why different levels of communication exist. And whether you like it or not, government people, police people, military people bring that mentality into security. And I personally think that there's a time and a place for that. But generally speaking, in corporate security, you don't need that because it's just a completely different operation.
Thank you so much, Igor. So now, what question would you like to pose for the next guest?
Oh, good luck with that one, by the way. The question is this. We've seen how we went from an agrarian society to an industrialized society. And then we've seen what happened with, nuclear energy. And now we're seeing what is happening with artificial intelligence and robotics. And arguably, that's like the next step in technological evolution. What will happen after AI and robotics? I would love to hear that prediction. What will be the next giant leap in technology?
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Igor. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you for joining me.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And that wraps up another episode of AI Experience. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform. Your support counts, and your comments can really help share this experience with others. You can also visit the website ai-experience.io to find out more. See you soon for a new episode.